Questions presented during the September 28th and 29th tapings of Candidates Q&A were compiled by media representatives. The views expressed are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of the City of Cupertino. Five candidates are in the running for 2 seats on Cupertino City Council. As part of the City Channel's ongoing coverage of this race toward Election Tuesday, you're about to see an up-close and personal introduction to one of those 5 candidates. This is Candidates Q&A with tonight's featured City Council candidate, Marshall Goldman. Tonight's segment was recorded on Friday, September 29th.
Welcome to Candidates Q&A. I'm Miguel Salinas with the Cupertino Courier, along with Michael Cronk from the San Jose Mercury News. We're joined by businessman Marshall Goldman, who is running for Cupertino City Council. Welcome, Mr. Goldman. I'd like to start off by just asking kind of an obvious question. During the last re-election, you had an unsuccessful bid for the City Council. Why are you running again? What prompted you to try again?
Well, the reason I'm running is because I want to protect the investments that we have all made in our community. I want to protect the jobs and the schools and the open space, and I think these are things that I've had the experience in doing and that I want to continue to do. There are 3 things that I want to do when I'm elected. Number 1, I want to protect our open space. I was the author of the Hillside Protection Policy, and I think that that went a long way towards protecting our hillsides. I want to continue that. I want to make sure that Stevens Creek stays a community street and that we don't have high-rises built in our community. I think that's very important. And I want to bring back community events like the 4th of July.
In talking about the Hillside Protection Policy, the Council recently, as you know, approved development for the diocese property, allowing a great many more homes than was allowed in the Hillside Protection Policy in exchange for the dedication of public open space. At the time, you were very vocal. Would you reiterate your feelings about that vote and that action by the Council? And if you were back on the Council, do you favor a strict adherence to the Hillside Protection Policy as it's written?
Well, first of all, when I'm elected, I would favor a strict adherence to the Hillside Protection Policy. The policy that I wrote severely limits the number of houses allowed in our foothills. This encompasses not only the diocese property, but Kaiser Permanente and other properties. And it is really our last line of defense from becoming another San Jose or Orange County, where we have wall-to-wall houses from here to the ocean. I oppose the current decision by the City Council, building 200 units or so on that property in no way preserves open space. I don't think anybody can logically show that that's true. I think it sets a precedent that will be the first step in destroying the remaining hillsides. I think the whole concept of open space has been manipulated to the ends of developers and paid lobbyists. If you look at that property right now, anybody that walks on Rancho San Antonio, if they look down at the property, we have the open space. I mean, there's no question about it. We can feel it, we can touch it. There's a sense of it. And somebody that tells you that somehow by building 200 houses is going to preserve that open space is just selling you a bill of goods that will not hold up.
You had mentioned Cupertino, you not wanting Cupertino to become a San Jose or an Orange County. What are the problems or indicators that concern you now that prompt you to think that the potential for that high-density growth can occur in Cupertino?
Well, I think there's a lack of long-term thinking in the first place. If you look at the way San Jose has been developed, basically any developer has gotten their way. They come to you and they say, well, this project will not create any more traffic. They show you studies, and in the end, it does. I mean, and we know the traffic just gets worse and worse. And there also has been a lack of long-range planning to protect open space. Cupertino is a very unique community. We have a very high quality of life. We have the opportunity, we have numerous opportunities to protect our open space and not listen to developers. I think a member of the City Council has to be above, has to be a protector of the community. I mean, we have to follow a long-term plan so that we know that if we build 200 houses here today, 2 years from now somebody else is going to ask for 200 more, and on and on and on, and there has to be put a stop to it. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the hillside protection policy, because I felt that there had to be a means by which the city could control that development. And I really think that makes Cupertino unique.
In your successful election to the council in '89 and unsuccessful campaign in '93, you ran this campaign. Have you hired a consultant to advise you, or what is the role, and why did you feel this was an appropriate thing to do or way to go in your current election campaign?
Well, I think the problem that we have in Cupertino is that another thing that we don't want to have happen is to become like San Jose with the big-time San Jose politics and negative campaigning. And unfortunately, this has been the trend. And there doesn't seem to be not only that, but the consultant that ran the negative campaign in the last election also has been hired by the diocese to represent them. So there's an even more serious trend in terms of the interrelationship of campaigns and developments, and I think that's very, very serious.
That's true, but is this a case of fighting fire with fire, or having having to do that to have a level playing field, or?
I think that I owe it to the people that support me and that have contributed to my campaign to run the best possible campaign that I can, and I think that unfortunately we're at the level where we need to get some professional help in order to do that. However, the bottom line is, what do you do in terms of how you control the people that work for you? And remember, anybody in a campaign, a candidate is ultimately responsible for what happens. And I don't intend to run my campaign any differently than I did in the past. We will talk about the issues. We will present the best possible platform for the community of the things that I feel we should be doing in the future. I want to protect the hillsides. I want to bring back the 4th of July celebration, and I want to make sure that Stevens Creek stays a community street. And the way we market that is going to be important.
Mr. Goldman, you had mentioned earlier one of the problems you see in our community is the lack of long-term planning or long-term thinking. What then is the purpose of the general plan, and what is your position on either opening it or keeping it closed or waiting till the next one comes along?
Well, I don't think we should reopen the general plan. The general plan is the document by which we address the long-term vision of the community. And if you look at the general plan that we passed during my term, it was a very creative plan. It looked 20 years to the future. It said that it's important that we protect the hillsides. The hillside protection policy, which I wrote, was incorporated by unanimous vote of the City Council into that plan. Limiting the heights along Stevens Creek Boulevard, providing traffic controls, providing architectural controls, looking at ways of creating a community identity. These are all long-term visions that are expressed in a general plan. And it wasn't just the 3 members of the council, that eventually approved it. All 5 of us worked on it. All 5 of us compromised on it. It was started by 100 people from the community who came up with a vision, and we simply implemented that vision. I think that it's a document that people should look at and should, if they're members of the council, they should live by and understand it before they just throw it out, after every election.
So would you say that it's working or not working? Or how would you change it if that was?
Well, the key point of the general plan is that has been changed is the hillside protection policy. If the council listened to the general plan, we wouldn't be building 200 houses on the diocese property. I think that is a terrible, the issue is not whether or not the general plan is working or not. The issue is whether people are even reading it or whether they're even following it. The general plan says that we're going to limit development in the hillsides. That's very important. That's the hillside protection policy. That's the policy that I wrote, that I put in place. All we need is leadership in terms of following that, and we'd be in very good shape.
In the last election, the 2 candidates elected wanted to reopen the general plan, specifically regarding the amount of industrial or office space allocated to primarily the big 3 computer companies. We have another candidate, or actually 2 candidates, who are talking about the same thing. In terms of the general plan, do you think that it is necessary to address that issue at this point, in terms of, in other words, what is the likelihood that kind of growth will be tapped into by those companies within the next?
This whole argument is kind of turned around here. There have been points that have been made that there's somehow 5 Valcos in the general plan. There are not 5 Valcos in the general plan. There are not 10-story buildings in the general plan lining Stevens Creek Boulevard. On the contrary, there are very low-rise buildings controlled growth, and there is room on the property of the major companies, Hewlett-Packard, Tandem, and Apple, for them to continue their growth into the next century. Now, I don't think there's anybody in Cupertino that would like Hewlett-Packard or Tandem to leave. They provide money for us. They provide benefits. The open space that we bought was funded 2/3 by taxes paid by those companies. If they were to leave, I think it would be a terrible thing for the community. If you look at communities where this has occurred, for example, East Palo Alto in the 50s had a lot of industry there. And there was a group there that said, well, we want to be a residential community and we should just, not worry about our business. And gradually you can see the result. We don't want to become an East Palo Alto. We don't want to become San Jose that is dependent on housing instead of having a very strong and vibrant industrial base.
But that's what I'm trying to, the point, maybe I didn't express it as clearly, because the rhetoric is such that someday that Cupertino is threatened. There's all these terrible things are going to happen because of this amount of growth that's allowed in the general plan at some future date. And I was trying to get a sense of whether you feel that is really an issue.
I think it's a legitimate issue that a member of the council cannot be swayed either by businesses or developers to do things that are not in the interest of the community. We are there to protect our community, to control the traffic, to control the heights. It is not a legitimate issue to say that these companies, if they live within the parameters that we have set, cannot expand. In fact, it is a positive thing for those companies to be here. You talk to anybody that is in the schools, they're heavily donated in the schools. You look at our budget, they provide an ever-increasing part of the budget. In fact, the reason I wrote the hillside protection policy was to actually control the growth that would be the most negative, which would be to build houses wall to wall from here to Santa Cruz. That's a very serious issue. And so I think that it's kind of a backwards argument to be attacking people that have acted in a beneficial means, provided jobs, provided income from the city, and to just change on a regular basis every 2 years. I think that's very poor planning.
But I think the concern that I've heard talked about is the fact that the big three companies that are here plan this growth, but that growth also includes a need for residential growth.
That's not true.
Do you see these in conflict, or how would you resolve?
Who says that? Who says they need the residential growth?
Well, if there are going to be more jobs, more people are going to want to live here, and there's going to.
Is there a housing shortage right now?
Affordable housing, I hear there is.
Well, you know, the jobs that are being provided by these companies are very high-paying jobs. And if you look at a radius of a mile around any one of these companies, you will see that there is plenty of housing available. In fact, it's in Cupertino's interest because our values of our homes go up when we are next to high-paying jobs. Now, I think that's just another way of scaring our community into thinking that somehow we're going to be forced into building thousands of homes as a result of the jobs. In fact, it's the contrary. I wrote the hillside protection policy to prevent thousands of homes being built. The only thing that is being supported as a change to the general plan right now is to destroy the hillside protection policy and allow thousands of homes to be built. I'm against that. I think that's wrong.
So you don't think that there's a limit to the housing here and those folks that come in for jobs, maybe not necessarily with the big three, but just for jobs in general in Cupertino and can't find affordable housing? How would you?
Why should we link, so severely the growth of businesses and jobs to you have to have the housing first? Let me tell you something. If you don't have a job, you can't afford a house. It seems to me we've gotten this completely backwards. The important thing that has made our community vibrant is the fact in Santa Clara County is that we all have high-paying jobs. That's why we can afford the houses that we have. That's why we have the good schools. I mean, to make the argument, in the reverse that let's build the houses first and then somehow business will come in here is totally impractical. There's no room in Cupertino. It's a ridiculous argument, and it's just being used to scare people, and I think that's wrong.
But what is your position on affordable housing? Is there a need in Cupertino for it? If so, how much? Where would it be appropriate? I know that when you were on the council, you were on the Affordable Housing Committee.
Right.
Have your views on affordable housing changed in any way?
Affordable housing is the oxymoron committee of Cupertino. I mean, I think that the affordable housing. First of all, I think that I don't want to see a lot of housing built in Cupertino. In fact, I wrote the hillside protection policy to prevent the increased number of homes and to prevent the schools from being overcrowded. I think that there is an issue as far as housing for moderate and median income people. There's no question we don't have a lot of low-income housing. I don't think we should have a lot of low-income housing. I think it would be a detriment to our community to have a lot of low-income housing. I just don't see I don't buy the argument. On the other hand, I think where we are lacking is in the moderate and median areas, which is truly the area where our teachers and our service people qualify. And I think that there may be some opportunity to do that or not, but it's certainly not a priority as far as I'm concerned. My priority is I want to protect the hillsides. I want to make sure, as I wrote the hillside protection policy so that the city had the means to do it and had the people on the council that could do it. And you need those two things. I want to make sure that Stevens Creek remains low profile and bring it back as a community street. I think we can do that. And I want to bring back community events like the 4th of July. Those are my priorities.
Mr. Goldman, you had mentioned several things in our conversation today, but what, considering all the issues and the social and political climate of the community now, how do you see Cupertino in 5 years? Where do you think we're headed, considering where we are now?
Well, I think Cupertino is a wonderful community. I love living here. I have 3 kids here. My kids are all in the schools. The schools are great. It has very high quality jobs which provide income to our community. It has a very good youth sports program which I helped promote both on the council and off the council. We've just renovated a lot of the school fields. That was something that I think was very positive. I want us to I want us to stop looking at these scare tactics of 5,000 homes which don't exist, or 5 more Valcos. I think that's ridiculous. What I want us to focus on is how we as a community, using all our resources, can work together to make our community the jewel of the peninsula, which I think it is now, and we can enhance it. I think we need to, I see that we will put to rest in 5 years this issue of whether we have to build out the hillsides. We don't have to build out the hillsides if we have the leadership to protect the hillsides. That's number one. I see us having every year an old-fashioned 4th of July celebration, because I think that that brings all aspects of the community together. I see us developing further partnerships in our schools because I think that even though we've gone a long way towards providing activities for our kids, I think that there are still a lot of work that we need to do. It's better to have them occupied than have them getting in trouble. Our sheriff bills go down. And I see us continuing to maintain the low level of crime that we have right now.
Mr. Goldman, just to follow up on something you said, you had said that we don't need to build in the hillsides, but we need the leadership to keep that from happening. What is the role of the City Council in, not having the hillsides built up and not allowing Cupertino to become San Jose, as you say?
Many people have asked me this, and I think there are 2 things that you need to have in order to protect the hillsides. The first thing that you need to have is you need to have a policy that gives you the ability to protect the hillsides. That's what I wrote. That's what the hillside policy was. It was a policy that gives the city, the community, the ability to restrict the development in the hillsides and preserve that forever. The second thing is you need a strong council that understands that and is willing to enforce that. And I feel that as part of that council, I can provide the leadership to do that. And with those 2 components, I think this community can maintain and prosper, and that's what I want to do.
Do you still consider it important for Cupertino to have a heart or a city center? You've mentioned Stevens Creek several times, and I know 2 years ago you were talking about the need to create a community identity. What was envisioned back then in terms of light rail and pedestrian-oriented is certainly a lot different than what the Stevens Creek specific plan that was adopted recently by the council. You're talking about a community street. So have you changed your view on the need for a city center or an identifiable core, the type of street it should be from what you maybe envisioned 2 years ago?
When I've talked with people after the election, most people have said to me that where is Cupertino? There is no downtown. And I think that still is a very strong theme on the part of our community, that they would like to see that. For example, a place such as Starbucks, just located on Hollenbeck Road, right across the city line in Sunnyvale. Now, the reason they located there was because they want Cupertino's business. But the problem is that there's really no identifiable city center that would be amenable to places like Starbucks or Noah's Bagels or those type of stores. If you go to Los Altos and Menlo Park and Los Gatos, everybody has that but Cupertino. I also think that that's a way to deal with increasing our sales tax revenue. I think that we are being outcompeted by other communities that have had have had downtowns. On the other hand, I think it's a long-term project. It takes a lot of long-term planning and consensus building.
What's your view of what the plan as it exists that's been adopted?
Well, the plan that they adopted was a waste of time. It was basically, they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, on this architect, and they came up with just a very mild facelift of Stevens Creek Boulevard, which, in my opinion, the money could be spent, better spent elsewhere. But having said that, I think that there is an interest on the part of people to have some sort of an identity. I think it just needs some strong leadership on the part of the council and some consensus building that I haven't seen in moving that process forward. And I think that's a very, very difficult task.
Seems like we're nearing the end of our discussion. Is there any quick final question you'd like to ask? Or?
Just one more. How would you envision working more cooperatively or regionally, if you will, with the adjoining cities on some of the issues? I'm thinking of economic viability of communities, the hillsides that you've talked about a great deal. I know that there's some effort afoot for all the cities to get together in terms of working together to protect the hillsides and recognizing that problems or issues don't stop at particular city borders. In other words, I imagine what would happen in Sunnyvale or Santa Clara or San Jose might have an effect on Cupertino. Do you think that a regional approach is the way to go in a lot of these issues?
You read, that was a long question for, excuse me, but the answer is, I think, the two things again. When I wrote the hillside protection policy, nothing had been done like that before in the community. That provided the leadership and the momentum for other communities to take notice. I think that Cupertino, as a leader in the community, should work cooperatively with Palo Alto and Los Altos and Sunnyvale and all their adjacent communities. And in doing that, I think we should stop. The community should stop stealing each other's sales tax. To be honest, I mean, whenever there's a Costco or a Price Club, there's an auction as to which city can go the lowest, and in the end, the community no community prospers. I think those type of collaborative agreements will make Santa Clara County the jewel of California, and that would be a wonderful thing.
Great. Well, we're out of time, and we'd just like to thank you, Mr. Goldman, for joining us, and good luck on your campaign.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here.
Election Tuesday is November 7th. Please vote for the two candidates best suited to serve on Cupertino City Council. And keep watching the City Channel for more special City Council election programming.